Support our movement. Join our cause. Stop by the Douglas Ducote Patriots shop to get your official Team Ducote apparel and gear.
Hello, American Patriots. I recently recorded an interview with fellow U.S. Army veteran American Joe and Fox News regular Professor Nicholas Giordano, professor of political science. Nick is also a host of the PASReport.com podcast. Professor Nick appears on radio, television to provide analysis on current issues, trends within government, politics, international relations, homeland security, and emergency management, and social and cultural related issues. The three of us discuss a wide range of topics from red flag laws to the Second Amendment and the AntiFa terrorists to our Constitution. Over the next few days, I'll be releasing this interview in parts to make it easier for you to watch, and we will do this in 6 different parts. Please enjoy, share, and know that we have at least one professor that is on our side.
I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic. So one of the things we want to get right into the meat of right now, something that American Joe and I have been discussing is the real purpose of the Second Amendment, as well as our red flag laws and how mental health is affecting our children and what we're doing about it or not doing about it throughout our school system. So, Professor Nick, if we could start with the Second Amendment and the things that you've talked about in the past that we feel should be brought to a larger audience as much as we possibly can about the Second Amendment and its actual meanings. So could you share some light on that for us, please?
Sure. And the problem becomes that most of us don't get trained in history. We don't understand history. We don't understand the intent of the founding fathers. And so whenever you hear the gun debate taking place today, a lot of people say, well, you don't need these firearms to go hunting. You don't need these firearms to protect your home. The whole point of the Second Amendment wasn't for hunting or even to protect your home against intruders. The whole point of the Second Amendment is from an overbearing government that becomes tyrannical and starts to abuse the people. And that's why the founding fathers found it so important. A lot of people point to Alexander Hamilton in Federalist 29 and say that when they were defining the militias, that was for the states. And that's not true. The militia encapsulates regular civilians. That's who the militia consisted of, regular civilians that could hold the government accountable. And the founding fathers entrusted us with a lot of power.
Exactly. And that's, it seems like not only are the Democrats and those on the far left getting this wrong, but sadly, I'm seeing a lot of Republicans that are getting it wrong. And, you're right. History is not being taught to our children. We're finding this out more and more that, I'm 57 years old. What I was brought up with and the way we were taught about American history and conflicts and so forth is completely wiped out of the curriculum now. And kids aren't getting anything when it comes to the real purposes behind the Constitution, behind our Bill of Rights, and individually what they all stand for. And Joe, I you've heard the same thing from people as well, your viewers, that, that people have to grasp the concept behind why our founding fathers did this and what the meaning of this was. We weren't talking about squirrel hunting and shooting deer back then.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure we're talking about the left or the right getting it wrong. I think there's more of a malicious intent here. The Supreme Court's already made a ruling on what it means to be a regulated militia. It has nothing to do with the National Guard, has nothing to do with the government at all. It has to do with the fact that in those days they expected if a government became tyrannical, that every able-bodied man would show up for the fight. And, of course, he would be responsible for bringing arms that he owned from his home to the fight. So everybody was expected to be well-armed. And well-regulated simply meant come together when the time is right, when duty calls, and show up. And in today's world, that just would never happen. And that's the unfortunate state that we're in right now. We've completely gone away from where our founding fathers really wanted our country to go in so many ways.
Well, you just hit on something right there where you said in today's world, that will never happen. I'm wondering from your point of view, Professor Nick, do you see a point in time where we're, at least the way we're heading at the moment, with this big divide in our country, to where, a lot of people are saying, and we hear this all over social media, another civil war is coming. It's going to be the left against the right. And, veterans are being, talked down to, and our military is being trashed by members in Congress. What's your view on that? Do you think that it could ever possibly come to, obviously it could possibly come to, but that we're in a direction that is really dangerous?
Well, I do think there is a huge ideological divide, but we're not even close to the levels of armed civil conflict. And I think that's just the media trying to hype things up, trying to whip people into a frenzy. And that's what they do for ratings. That's what they do.
Right.
When you're looking at, we coexist fairly well today. Regardless of political ideology, regardless of race and religion, we're the one country in the entire world where people from all over the place come, they settle, and there's no killings, no ethnic cleansing, no race wars going on. So I think the fears of civil war are largely overblown. I think it's a lot of hype and hysteria. And if you go back to the 1970s, the 60s with the civil rights, and then the 70s, I think that you had the same type of, we were a divided nation. There was no doubt about it. And it didn't evolve into civil war. You could look at any point in our history, we've always faced challenges, and we have been able to overcome those challenges. I think we're in one of those moments now. Now, the challenges are a little bit deeper because of the technology that exists and because of the politicians. One of the things that you hit on that was really good, if you look at Republicans, we become a reactive society where whenever we see a mass shooting, we feel that we instantly need to react. The politicians instantly need to say that they're doing something. Sometimes doing nothing is better than doing something. And what I find atrocious is that none of these politicians seems to have understood American history at all. These are elected members of Congress that should know the Constitution in and out, and they should also know the Declaration of Independence. And in the Declaration, it says that it's the people's responsibility. It is their right. It is their duty. It is their obligation to overthrow any government that becomes tyrannical and abuses them. At the same time, when you're looking at the Second Amendment and you're trying to put everything in context, you were right. The Founding Fathers weren't talking about squirrels and deer. And Joe brought up a great point when he said that looking at the whole situation with the gun violence that's currently going on, looking at the mass shootings that exist, you have to understand that it's a small percentage that's happening. Okay. Right. And that's the main thing. Unfortunately, our education system has completely collapsed, and we're seeing this. And just so I just did a podcast episode about the collapse of our education system. Just so you're aware, 11% of graduating seniors are proficient in American history. That's it, 11%. So how can you actually have a gun debate when most people don't know why the Second Amendment exists in the first place?
Correct.
Support our movement. Join our cause. Stop by the Douglas Ducote Patriots shop to get your official Team Ducote apparel and gear. As always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, first responders, their families, our Blue and Gold Star families, our president, and our country. Thank you, and God bless you.